The old space station drifted in silence. It had been abandoned for centuries, maybe even longer. No one knew who had built it or why it was left behind. The only thing certain was that it was ancient, lost in the void, and waiting to be found. The research team from the Kolthan Empire moved carefully through the station's dark corridors. Their boots echoed against the metal floor. Dust floated in the air, untouched for ages. The lead scientist, Varric, held a scanner in his trembling hands. "Still no life signs," he whispered. Behind him, his assistant, Ryla, shivered. "I don't like this place. It feels wrong." They had heard rumors about the station. It was said to hold records from fallen civilizations, empires that had ruled the stars long before the Kolthan Empire was born. If the rumors were true, this place held secrets that could change the future. The team reached a massive metal door, sealed shut with thick layers of rust and ice. Varric pressed a button on his wrist console. A small drone hovered forward, releasing a pulse of energy. The ice cracked and the door creaked open. Inside was a circular chamber lined with glowing blue screens. In the center of the room stood a large console covered in dust. The screens flickered to life as they entered, as if sensing their presence. A deep, mechanical voice spoke. "Accessing last recorded warning. Playback initiated." The team froze. The screens filled with images, strange symbols, ancient star maps, and recordings of alien faces, all speaking the same desperate words. "Do not engage with Earth." The same message played in different languages, spoken by different creatures, their voices filled with fear. Earth's children, they are not like ours. The final recording sent a chill through Varric's body. A reptilian alien, old and dying, stared into the camera with wide, haunted eyes. His voice trembled. "We thought they were weak, but we were wrong. They're children's games. They are training. They learn war before they can walk. They do not fear death. They see strategy as play. We attacked, and they laughed. We fought, and they adapted. Every empire that has challenged them is gone." The recording ended. Silence filled the chamber. Rilla took a step back. "This has to be a joke, right?" Varric wasn't sure. He looked at the final screen, displaying the last words of the dying alien. "Earth does not conquer. It survives. It evolves. It wins." A cold realization crept over him. If these messages were real, then humanity was not a race to be underestimated. And worse, if this station was found, then others might find it too, which meant that somewhere out in the darkness, Earth's children were still waiting, and they were still playing their games. The Kolthan research team stood frozen in the dim blue glow of the ancient screens. The warning echoed in their minds. Earth's children were warriors in disguise. But how? How could a species so young, so seemingly primitive, strike fear into empires that had ruled for thousands of years? Varric swallowed hard. "We need to know more." Rilla shook her head. "I think we need to leave." Ignoring her, Varric reached for the console. His fingers hovered over the controls. With a deep breath, he activated the next archive. Accessing historical records. Playback initiated. The screens flickered, then changed. A new image appeared, grainy, old, but clear enough to see. It showed the first known contact between an alien race and Earth. The Yelthari Empire was once feared across the stars. They were tall, insectoid beings with razor-sharp limbs and intelligence rivaling any known species. They had crushed planets, conquered entire systems. When their scouts discovered Earth, they didn't see a threat. They saw an easy victory. A Yelthari commander stood on the bridge of his warship, watching Earth's surface through a hollow screen. The humans were small, fragile creatures. His warriors observed them from cloaked drones, recording their behavior. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The humans built cities, traded resources, fought minor wars. They were aggressive, but no more than other species the Yelthari had crushed before. Then, the recordings changed. The Yelthari spies focused on human children. Small, helpless creatures with soft hands and curious eyes. At least, that's what they thought. What they saw next made their blood run cold. The children were playing, but their games were war. They built battle strategies with small figures on checkered boards, predicting their opponent's moves. They ran through forests with imitation weapons, practicing ambushes, learning how to flank, how to hunt. They fought in rings, training their bodies to endure pain, to strike without hesitation. They competed over and over, not just for fun, but to win. The Yelthari commander leaned forward. This is not normal." His chief strategist reviewed more footage. Every game the children played revolved around conflict, strategy, endurance, deception, survival. And worst of all, they improved. Unlike other species who relied on instincts or centuries of genetic conditioning, humans learned. They adapted. They studied their failures, adjusted, and returned stronger. The commander's clawed hand curled into a fist. Send a scouting party. Test them. Let's see how they react to real war. A fleet of Yltheri warships entered Earth's orbit under full cloak, undetected. They sent elite ground forces to a remote location, planning to capture human subjects to study. They expected a simple mission. Instead, they triggered something they didn't understand. The moment the first Yltheri soldiers set foot on Earth, the humans reacted, not with panic, but with precision. The humans didn't run. They observed. They set traps. They moved in formations, coordinating without words. A group of human teenagers, barely more than children, were the first to encounter the Yltheri invaders. They had no advanced weapons, no battle armor, but they had something far deadlier. They had experience. They had spent their whole lives training for war without even realizing it. The Yltheri, outnumbered and disoriented, fell into an ambush. The humans attacked with brutal efficiency, using their environment to their advantage. They fought like seasoned warriors, because to them, this wasn't war. It was just another game. Within hours, the elite Yltheri soldiers were gone. Their commanders watched in horror as the mission failed. The last transmission from the ground team was filled with screams. The Yltheri Empire, a race that had conquered dozens of worlds, had never seen anything like it. They withdrew from Earth immediately, erasing all records of their failed invasion. But it was too late. A message was sent to every empire in the galaxy, a single warning: do not challenge Earth. Their warriors are not trained in war. They are born into it. Back in the present, Varric and his team stood in stunned silence. Rilla's voice was barely a whisper. This isn't a myth, is it? Varric clenched his jaw. No, it wasn't. And if the warnings were true, then Earth was not just a planet. It was a battlefield waiting to happen. Varric's breathing was shallow. The air inside the ancient station felt colder now. The message, the warnings, it wasn't just fear, it was terror. He turned to Rilla, who was still staring at the flickering screens. Do you understand what this means? He asked. She swallowed hard. It means we should never go near Earth. Varric wasn't so sure. Warnings were just words from fallen empires, from species who had lost. But why? What made humans so different? How could a young race defeat civilizations that had ruled for millennia? He pressed another button on the console. The archive responded. Accessing additional records. Playback initiated. The screens changed again. This time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a lesson. The recording came from the Keveri Dominion, a species known for their superior technology. Unlike the Yltheri, the Keveri hadn't attacked Earth in secret. They had come as conquerors. Their fleets darkened Earth's skies, their soldiers descended in waves. They had crushed worlds before. This would be no different. But Earth didn't surrender. It didn't even hesitate. The Keveri expected a desperate defense, a chaotic resistance. Instead, they found something far worse, a coordinated response. Humanity reacted with terrifying speed. Their military didn't panic, it adapted. Their civilians didn't cower, they prepared. The humans organized into squads, strategies forming in real time. Within hours, Earth's armies had turned the invasion into a deadly game of survival. But it wasn't just the soldiers. The civilians joined the fight. Engineers modified weapons on the fly, mechanics turned vehicles into war machines, hackers shut down Keveri ships from thousands of miles away. Even the children played a role, running messages, sabotaging supplies, setting traps. The Keveri warlord, watching from his command ship, couldn't understand it. He had seen resistance before, but this was different. Humans weren't fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And they were enjoying it. The war became a nightmare. The Keveri, who had expected an easy conquest, found themselves in a war they didn't understand. Every strategy they used, the humans countered. Every advantage they thought they had, the humans took from them. The warlord finally realized the truth. Humans didn't fear war. They studied it, perfected it, turned it into an art. And worst of all, they never stopped getting better. The Keveri fled Earth, leaving behind only devastation and unanswered questions. They had been stronger, faster, and better armed. But against humans, none of that had mattered. Because war was humanity's greatest strength. The recording ended. Varric's hands trembled. He could still hear the Kivari warlord's final words before his empire fell. Do not fight Earth. They do not see war as destruction. They see it as a challenge. And they do not lose. A deep silence filled the station. Rilla turned to him. Still think this is just a myth? Varric didn't answer. Because for the first time in his life, he was afraid. And far away, beyond the stars, Earth remained silent. Watching, waiting, and preparing for the next game. Varric felt the weight of the warnings pressing down on him. The more he uncovered, the more the fear spread through his body like a sickness. Earth wasn't just another warlike species. It wasn't an empire that conquered through brute force. It was something far worse. It was a force that adapted. A species that turned war into a game. A race that learned from every battle and never stopped improving. He swallowed hard and pressed another button on the console. The station's cold voice echoed through the chamber. Accessing records from the Zavanti Collective. Playback initiated. The screens flickered, showing the remnants of another fallen empire. The Zavanti Collective had been one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their technology was unrivaled, their knowledge of warfare centuries ahead of any known race. They had watched as the Yelthari and Kivari fell to Earth, dismissing it as a failure of strategy, not a failure of strength. They would not make the same mistakes. So when the Zavanti decided to attack, they prepared. They spent decades studying humanity from the shadows, analyzing their tactics, dissecting their weaknesses, and perfecting a strategy that would eliminate Earth in one swift strike. They launched their attack with absolute confidence. In the first hour, half of Earth's defense systems were destroyed. In the second hour, every major city was under siege. In the third hour, the Zavanti believed they had already won. Then, everything changed. The humans didn't react like any species before them. They should have surrendered. They should have broken. Instead, they did what they always did. They adapted. Their networks, supposedly crippled, began rerouting in ways the Zavanti couldn't predict. Their ground forces, outnumbered and outgunned, started using tactics the Zavanti had never seen before. Their civilians, ordinary workers, traders, scientists, picked up weapons and fought like trained soldiers. And worst of all, they learned. Within hours, they understood the Zavanti's strategies better than the Zavanti did themselves. The humans began counterattacking, not randomly, but with precision. A Zavanti commander watching from orbit couldn't believe what he was seeing. "This is impossible," he muttered. "They were losing." "No," his lieutenant whispered. "They were studying us." The humans turned the war into a lesson. Every failed attack became an opportunity to improve. Every lost battle taught them something new. By the end of the first day, the Zavanti were struggling. By the second day, they were retreating. By the third day, they were gone. An empire that had stood for 10,000 years fell in 3 days, because they had tried to outthink the one species that never stopped thinking. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Varric exhaled shakily. The fear in his chest had turned into something else, something deeper. Rilla's voice was barely a whisper. "If humanity is this dangerous, why haven't they taken over the galaxy?" Varric turned to her, his face pale. "Because they don't have to. Earth didn't conquer planets. It didn't need to. It only needed to wait. Because sooner or later, every empire, every species, every civilization in the galaxy would make the same mistake. They would think they could beat Earth, and Earth would prove them wrong." Far away, beyond the black void of space, Earth remained quiet. Watching, waiting, preparing. Because the next war was only a matter of time. And when it came, humanity would be ready. Varric's hands trembled as he stood before the ancient console. His heart pounded in his chest. Every record, every warning, it all pointed to the same horrifying truth. Earth was not to be challenged. And yet, time and time again, empires had ignored the warnings, and they had all fallen. He turned to Rilla. Her face was pale, her breathing uneven. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered. "This place, these messages, they were meant to be forgotten." Varric wasn't so sure. There was one more archive left to open. The final entry, the last warning. With shaking fingers, he pressed the command. Accessing the final record, playback initiated. The station's lights flickered. The air turned cold. The screens filled with static before revealing the image of a dying alien. A creature old beyond time, its eyes hollow, its voice weak. It was the last survivor of a once great empire. and its final words sent a chill through Varek's soul. "We thought we were gods," the alien rasped. "We had ruled for centuries. We had seen the rise and fall of lesser species. We believed we were untouchable." His voice trembled. "Then we made the mistake of looking toward Earth." The old creature coughed, its body breaking down, but it forced itself to speak, to warn. "They did not start the war. We did." The Empire had sent its fleets, its armies, its weapons, the best the galaxy had ever known. They had studied humanity beforehand as others had. They had prepared. It didn't matter. The humans adapted. They learned our technology in days. They cracked our codes in hours. They studied us as if we were nothing more than a puzzle to be solved. The aliens' eyes darkened. And they solved us. The war had not lasted years. It had not even lasted months. In 13 days, the Empire was reduced to nothing. "Humanity does not fight wars," the alien whispered. "They end them." The creature's breathing slowed. Its final words were barely audible. "If you are hearing this, leave Earth alone. Let them sleep. Let them dream. Do not wake the beast." The screen went dark. Varek's breath caught in his throat. The final message was not a warning. It was a plea. Silence filled the chamber. Rilla spoke first, her voice weak. "Varek, do you think they're still out there, watching us?" Varek turned off the console, his hands unsteady. "They don't have to watch us," he murmured. Rilla frowned. "What do you mean?" Varek exhaled, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because they already know exactly what we'll do." Far away, beyond the endless void of space, Earth remained silent, waiting, watching, preparing. And when the next Empire made the mistake of underestimating them, they would wake the beast once more. Varek and Rayla stood frozen in the dark chamber. The final message had played, but the weight of its words still hung in the air like a death sentence. "Do not wake the beast." Varek clenched his fists. Every fallen empire had left behind the same warning. Earth was not to be challenged. Yet, despite all the evidence, something inside him refused to believe it completely. "We're missing something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rilla looked at him, her face still pale from the horrors they had uncovered. "Missing what?" Varek turned back to the console. His fingers hesitated over the controls. These messages, they were left by species that fought Earth and lost. But what are the ones that never fought? What are the ones that listened? He activated another search. The system hesitated for a moment, as if reluctant to respond. Then a single entry appeared, one that had been buried deeper than the others. It was not a warning. It was a secret. The recording flickered to life, revealing the image of an alien unlike any they had seen before. It was old, far older than the others. Its eyes held a wisdom that only came from surviving countless ages of war. "If you have found this message, then you are at a crossroads," the alien said. Its voice was calm, deliberate. "You have learned the truth about Earth. Now you must decide what to do with that knowledge." It leaned forward, its expression unreadable. "You are not the first to come searching for these warnings, but you may be one of the last." Varek swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" The alien continued. "Many empires tried to fight Earth. They were erased from existence. But a very few, chose a different path." Its voice dropped lower. "They chose to join them." Rilla stiffened. "Join them?" The alien nodded. "We saw what humanity was, what they were capable of. We knew that we could never defeat them. So instead of fighting them," a pause, "we learned from them." Varek felt his blood run cold. "Learned what?" The alien's expression darkened. "How to survive." The screen shifted, showing images, dozens of alien species, standing beside humans, their faces unreadable. They had not been conquered. They had been accepted. Rilla's voice was barely a whisper. They didn't just adapt to war. They taught others how to do it too. The alien in the recording spoke again. "Humanity is not merciless, but they are not kind either. They respect strength, intelligence, and most of all, it leaned in closer. They respect those who are willing to evolve." The message began to fade, but the alien's final words were clear. "If you stand against them, you will be forgotten. If you stand with them, you will endure. The choice is yours." The screen went dark. Varek exhaled shakily, his mind racing. Every empire that had fought Earth was gone, but those who had chosen to learn from them, they still remained. Rilla turned to him. "Varek, what do we do?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out of the station's viewport, staring into the endless abyss of space, toward the quiet, waiting world of Earth. Then, after a long moment, he finally spoke. "We don't wake the beast." He turned to Rilla, his eyes burning with new understanding. "We become part of it." Far away, in the vast darkness of the universe, Earth remained silent. Its people continued their games, their training, their endless pursuit of strength. Waiting, watching, welcoming those who understood the truth. Because in the end, the only way to survive in the galaxy was to stand with the monsters. Varric and Rilla stood in silence, the weight of the final message pressing down on them. Every fallen empire had left a warning. Every foolish conqueror had been erased. But a select few had understood, and they had endured. Varric clenched his fists. The truth was undeniable. You don't fight Earth. You don't fear Earth. You evolve with Earth. Rilla took a deep breath. "We need to tell the High Council." Varric shook his head. "No." She frowned. "No, after everything we've learned." Varric turned toward the viewport, staring into the void where Earth waited, silent, patient, undefeated. "The Council will want to challenge them," he said. "They'll think they're different, that they're smarter." He looked back at Rilla, his voice like steel. "And then they'll die like the rest." Rilla swallowed hard. She knew he was right. Varric exhaled slowly, a dangerous idea forming in his mind. "We don't warn the Council." His eyes gleamed with something new, something sharp, something ruthless. Rilla's breath caught in her throat. "Varric, what are you thinking?" He turned to her, his voice quiet but filled with certainty. "We don't tell them. We use this." A long silence. Then Rilla's expression shifted, understanding. The Council was doomed. Their arrogance, their blindness. It was only a matter of time before they made the same mistake as the others. But Varric and Rilla, they would be ready. They would learn from Earth. They would study its people, its strategies, its ways of war. And when the old powers fell, they would be the ones left standing. Varric took one last look at the ancient station's console, then shut it down for good. The past didn't matter anymore. The future belonged to those who were willing to adapt. He turned to Rilla, his voice calm but unwavering. "We are not the first to hear the warnings." He stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "But we will be the first to listen." Together, they walked toward their ship, toward a new destiny. Far away, Earth remained silent. Its people continued to train, to evolve, to sharpen their minds and bodies for a war that might never come. But when it did, they would be ready. And this time, they would not stand alone.